Okay, Jackie, can you hear me? Anyone?
Yeah,
I can hear you.
There you go.
Hey, oh my goodness.
there it is.
Hi guys, welcome. A few minutes late. So welcome you guys, and we're doing over market valuations. It's often called CMA in this class, but it's how to help you price a house. Is there anything like kind of up front that anybody's hoping to learn from this class going forward, or something that we want to cover today that if you don't know, that's okay. Is there something specific though?
Just one question for me is, when you're actually utilizing it, first of all, assuming that you're doing the CMA from the inside of the MLS place, not inside of Cloud CMA, is
Okay.
where you would make adjustments if you wanted to account for it inside of the tool or inside of the application.
So where you would make adjustments inside, like actually the MLS, but not Cloud CMA?
Right.
I wouldn't.
So
that's the easy answer.
okay. So
yeah.
when you're looking at them, you're actually just pulling what's on the market in comparison to pending, active, and closed, and then don't worry about making the adjustments to plus or minus if it has a garage or not.
We will, but we'll do that in Cloud CMA. There's no real active way to do that in the MLS. So
okay.
For accuracy, we're always going to want to make those adjustments, and we'll talk about those adjustments today. Some of them have changed. So if you've been to this class before, great time to update that information. And we're going to go a little bit deeper today. We'll also do market valuation together. So you can, do one together. If you've already signed up for Cloud CMA, I know they sent out a link to be able to do that on the intranet. So if there's anything, if you haven't signed up for it, you can let me know. But other than that, I think we'll be able to kind of workshop it today, if that makes sense. And I'll try one at the same time.
Thanks.
You bet.
I think, to jump in also, one of the things that I'm hoping to get is, you run a CMA, and the way I've been trained is that you do a range for the prices for the house. And the thing that I need more practice and advice on is how to, within that range, pick the actual list price. So you've got a range between this and this.
That's a great thing to comment on, because what happens is a lot of times we see ranges for people, and I never give a range. I give exactly what it's going to come up with the appraisal. And then we use that number to say, okay, the market's hot right now. Let's try to go 10,000 above that, or let's go right on the money and get multiple offers to go above that. So we'll strategically talk about how I deliver these market valuations with people. But the system's just so accurate that honestly, I don't feel like we need a range. And a range can be very confusing. Like, who's going to pick the bottom of the range for one? That makes no sense, right? So let's just get them on a really solid number with something that the appraiser is going to come up with, or, we're not appraisers, but using their same formulas, and then go ahead and use the market where it stands right now, and then list that for whatever price that is based on the current conditions of the market. So we'll cover that too. That's a great interlude to that, as far as how we use that. A lot of the information today will be, of course, how to build a market valuation, but I'll work on how I use that to deliver to my clients, as well as, of course, making sure that we're really, really clear on, like, is there other things you should be delivering that win that offer and things like that. So hopefully it'll help you do listing presentations as well. Anybody else?
I have one more question, or ask if you could address, and you probably will through the presentation. But in this market where we're seeing, I just spoke to a listing agent on a property that my clients and I had previously seen that went pending, and she couldn't give me the exact amount because it may go back on the market, but the house sold for 20% over the list price. At what point do we get to a point where it comes back on the listing agents to say, well, did you price it too low? Meaning if houses are selling at these huge premiums, you know, a $400,000 house selling for 500 or 425 selling for 525, that's a significant variance on what the house was listed at. And as a strategy, it's nice in a market where you have 20 offers. How does that play out in a more normal market when you have these huge variants in the list price and what the houses actually sell for? And what strategy would you recommend employing as far as coming up with the original starting price, since everything right now is up, up, up?
So my original starting price is going to be always based on what the appraiser is going to come up with, right? And because no matter where my offers escalate, my highest offer may not be the best one if nobody's willing to cover that. I really need a super firm foundation to say, hey, I'm positive that we can get 425 based on the recent solds for this. We've got offers that are 475. But we've also got an offer that's 465. They're offering to cover the difference, right, in cash. It would not make any sense to just try to get the highest offer. And my clients haven't, just because it just doesn't make sense. It's not going to appraise, and we're positive of that, right? There's no question there. So even if we get one or two solds that escalate in the time that we're closing, you know, we're averaging 4 to 5 properties, and even those 2 additions probably won't get that much difference on price. So we'll go through that today. I think it's a great question. I'll show you again kind of how we strategize, like if we get higher offers and what we expect from our offers from those after we do a market valuation together. It is just a crazy market. Anybody who's new in this business, you know, my goodness, you're just like, it's like a fire hose in the face. And on top of that, if you've been in the business for a long time, it's unprecedented there too. So how do we deal with it, and how do we make sure that we are keeping our sellers really safe, our buyers really safe? And so knowing these numbers is super imperative there, because we can actually speak from, you know, an educated background on it, as opposed to just kind of like, I don't know what it's going to do. I can show you stuff all over the place. So I do this all the time. I'll do a real quick market valuation for my clients if they're a buyer. Like, hey, it's going to go up above this, most likely. If it does, here's going to be the variance, probably an appraisal. That's a much faster process than me doing a listing market valuation, but all sides really need that educated information on it. Thank you for that question as well. I'll bring it back up. I'll circle back around to it. And if I don't, you let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I had
Anybody else?
one thing. Is there any advice for very odd shaped properties that have, you know, different things about them that are going to make them, you know, essentially hard to compare?
Well, so if it's, they're always just going to do a size. If it's lot square footage, they're going to do that apples to apples, but not like if it's a strange shape or oblong or triangle at the end or anything like that. It's always just based on square footage of the property. You'll find that if it's not usable property, for instance, an appraiser might find like 3/4 of that property is wetland. Well, he's not going to give it the same value as another property that's all usable land. And there's some differences in properties we'll talk about too. So that's coming up when we're heading right into that information pretty soon. And we'll cover property square footage and the difference that they use in those.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Don't forget, everybody, to turn on your cameras if you can. It's so hard to teach a class if it's just blank screens. I love your faces. I don't care if you brushed your hair or put on your lipstick. So, well, guys, you didn't put on your lipstick. I don't care about that. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen and dive right in if everybody's okay with that. Or if you have another question, just let me know, speak up. I will stop and talk and we can go over it, okay? And I can't probably see the chat very well, so if something comes up on the chat, I'm trying to talk and I'm not doing a very good job reading that at the same time. So let me know if there's something that important comes up there. Okay. Come on, where's my screen? Did everybody see the screen yet? Did it pop up?
Nope.
Seems
No.
weird. Okay, that's fun. Where did it go? How about now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to start in the this presentation. So we're just going to go over really quick, just some brief introduction about market valuations and make sure that we're really clear on that kind of stuff. This is just a funny little quip about how sellers view their property. Buyers obviously view it for much less and an appraiser for even less. But the truth is that especially in a strong market, we need a really solid number for sellers. They're either going to either have no idea, which is rare, or they're going to be like, listed for 100,000 more. So we need some really solid data to talk about what's price and not debate over price for people as well. And very, very rarely do I ever have to debate over price because we come in with the numbers that make sense to people. And when an appraiser appraises a property, I strongly believe that most people think that appraisers have more value than we do. So let's turn that back around, use them and their system for doing stuff and make sure that it applies to how we list houses as well. What is a market valuation? It's just going to be systematic. You're going to get a certain kinds of properties and we'll go through the details of that and then make sure we come up with a price. It's different than an appraiser because we're always clear that we are not appraisers. We are not certified to be appraisers. But over time, I've pulled all of my buyers' market valuations when they get them and they send them to me. So I can always know what's going on in the market of appraisals. And I've bought enough appraisals in my life that now I've got their system down. So that's what we're using for that. Don't ever tell your clients you're an appraisal, but we're just going to pay attention to their tactics and how they do it. An assessed value is actually what the taxation rate is for your property. So how the government decides your tax rate. And we're not going to dive into that, but generally it's about 10 to 15% below what your house market value is. All right, so today we're going to use the sales comparison approach. That is the most common one used by appraisers in normal resale home values. A cost approach would be if you were going to do new construction, something like that. We're not going to use that. And then income approach is things for multifamily or mixed use properties. So for instance, if it's a business mixed with apartment dwellings or condos above it, something like that. And we're not going to do that obviously as well today. So we're just going to dive right into how appraisers appraise houses. So let's start with the square footage on a house. They are always going to be, they're pretty similar. So when I teach you this class, I want you to know that sometimes you'll get an appraisal that will be totally different than other people because they're individuals and there's not actually a set formula for appraisals. This is consistently at least 90% of my appraisals have these same numbers. So just to kind of keep that in mind, you guys, sometimes I get one that's like a total one-off and I'm like, whoa, what's that? What's a totally weird number? But consistently my buyers have these same numbers in their appraisals. So the difference between your house that you're getting ready to list and the neighbor's house that's a good comp for you in King County is $45 a square foot on this, but actually I've seen 47 to 50 in the last couple of weeks. So we're going up a little bit. We're seeing a difference in the square footage. It's been consistently the same. We started to go up, in 2019, and then we went right back down in 2020 to $45 a square foot. And I'm really seeing about $50 a square foot consistently right now. We will, if you want access to this, you can have it. So if I can send you this whole thing. So if you're writing notes, you also can have a copy of this if you want to. And in Pierce County, it's $29 a square foot unless you're really close to the border of King County. And so we do see stuff that's up in the like 40s or stuff in right on the border. So just on the threshold where it barely is crossing that border, we're seeing a higher square footage. Let me give you an example. I'm in Enumclaw, so Buckley sometimes has a higher square footage, like Taps, where it's really it's Pierce County, but it feels like King County, where it's around that Auburn, Lakeland Hills, Lake Taps area. They really do have a lot of times $45 a square foot because they're right on the border. Does anyone have any questions on that? And we'll show you how to use this number, how to use this information too. So don't worry about that. Bedrooms, each bedroom is 5,000. I've never seen a difference yet on that. So If you have a 4-bedroom house and the neighbor has a 3-bedroom house, you're going to give another credit of $5,000 for your extra bedroom there. Bathrooms. The half bath just recently went up to 3,500, so it's no longer 2,500. So I'll get in and change that when I send this to anyone if they want to use that. The 3/4 bath is 5,000, and the full bath is still about 7,000.
I'll take a copy whenever you're ready for that.
Stephen, I know your email address. We saw you. I bought a house with you last year.
Yes, yes, you did.
Anna,
I
would it,
got it.
would it be
But-
safe to just have Goldie send out a copy to everyone who registered?
Yes, that's what we'll do. I'll just make sure that I just make sure that I go ahead. I'm just going to print actually probably these statistics. Sometimes people want the whole thing, but then it's shared to 50 million people on my Gmail. So it makes sense to maybe just do a sheet for everybody. And as that updates, I'll keep updating it for everyone. Garage bays, that one's changed, but in a very different way. So each garage bay, if you have 2-car garage and your neighbor has 3, you'd be deducting $10,000 from their comp. But it's actually changed to 7,000 on the past 5 appraisals that I've read. So I'm just going to go ahead and change it on this sheet and just say garage bays are now 7,000. I don't know why they went less. That's very unusual to me. But just so you know. And then same for shops. So you're going to run into listings and the guy's going to be like, but I have a shop and it's, you know, it was this much money, or it has to be worth $70,000 or $100,000. And consistently time after time, it's per garage bay that's in it. So let me give you an example. A shop's usually a big quad and it can fit 4 cars, for instance. That's a $40,000 shop, or in this case, it would be 28, you know, if it was 7,000 a piece. So and we'll do this too. We'll work through this together so everybody's really clear on it. AC and heat pump is 5,000. I'm going to skip a lot of acreage because I'm going to spend some time on that. Fireplaces are 2,500 a piece. And then age, you're going to try to get homes within 10 years. But what if you're in a location that there really isn't? So you've got a 1972 home and everything around it is maybe 1945, right? Or you're not going to be within that 10-year bracket. So you can adjust the 1,000 per year if you need to based on that. It's rare that I see appraisals adjust per year. They usually do it for upgrades or things like that, but they do sometimes do it if it's really, really not very close together. Does that make sense to everybody?
Real quick, Anna. So
Yeah.
if it's within the 10 years, it's so if it's 2006 and then you're getting a comp that's 2016. So that's in that 10 year.
Yeah, they usually don't make any adjustments for that at all. So
Okay.
yes, up or minus, there's not a whole lot of difference there. And we'll talk about kind of the anomalies of things that they don't seem to make it for, but sometimes for accuracy, I put it in my CMA so that people know that I've valued every aspect of their house as well. We'll talk about that because people, when they see these, they want to know that you really captured the value of their house, right? You didn't miss something. So we'll talk about that and how that's not going to make too much of a difference by the time we comp it out for everybody else. So age, we did that. So dates sold, they're not going to go past 180 days, which is 6 months, unless they're forced to. If there's literally no comps out there, there has been times last year where we just didn't have enough houses that were sold, so we had to go past that. So I saw people, appraisers going back into 2019 just way too far that it didn't make sense. Like, and they didn't adjust for price. That's frustrating to me. But normally there's a 180-day rule, which is 6 months. And honestly, if they have to go past it, they have to write a report on why they had to go past that date. So they probably don't want to do that. They're going to try to stick within the 6 months. You're hoping that they do less than 6 months at this point, because of course, what sold in December is not equivalent to what sold in March, right? I mean, prices have gone up dramatically. We want the most recent comps as possible. And they don't always deliver those either. So just be careful of that. I just bought one and we won. They tried to deliver stuff from July of last year and there was plenty of excellent comps from recent months. So we just won that one by just beating it. So How far away? Usually within 2 miles. If you're in a city residential area, they're gonna look within 1 mile. They have so many comps, they don't really need to go out any further. And I'm just seeing more 1 miles when they're close by. If they're rural, they're gonna go 2 miles, and if they have to go more than 2 miles, which in Enumclaw, for instance, where I'm at, they do. There's lots of acreage, so technically you're gonna have to go out maybe 3 or 4 miles. Noelle, who's on this call, they went out 6 miles for hers. That was fun. So they will do whatever they have to do, but they have to write a report explaining that. And then most importantly, when you're doing your comps, it's like kind. They're never going to vary from that. So a split level is always going to be comped to split levels. And a tri-level, you can maybe get away with a 2-story or a multi-level, but that one's a hard one. I see them kind of go all over the place with that. And then a 2-story to a 2-story, things like that. Does that make sense to everybody? That, I think that's one of the most critical points in here is don't try to comp out your 1-story for your client that's to 2 stories in the area. And they'll send you a bunch of 2 stories all the time. Like, well, what about this one? It just sold. And, well, it's not gonna make a difference in the appraisal. So let's take a look at the next page here, but I don't want to go too far if I have any questions.
When comparing a 2-story, or and in some cases, I've even got one that's a 3-story. It's got an attic bedroom with the bathroom. And the only comps I've got are, the only good comp I had was a Rambler. So is there any deduction or any other compensation to make that to where it's more accurate?
You want the hard answer? It's not a good comp.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's probably gonna have
I
to go
literally
out.
don't have any others. Yeah, okay.
I think send it to me when you can, and we'll take a look together maybe after this call, or even we'll look on the call together, maybe all of us, and we'll take a look and see if we can't find something for that one.
Okay.
Okay.
In a situation where you have a multi-story, so like I was looking, I have a house that I'm comping right now, and it's got like 4 stairs and then a floor and then 4 stairs and then a floor, and it does that like 5 times.
Yeah.
Would you use like it's a multi-level, but what would you use as comps if there's no multi-levels within a 2-mile radius and you're in B region?
Generally use like a 2-story with a basement in that case if there's nothing. I have a similar one. I've got getting ready to list it in Milton. And it really is kind of like that, where you actually come straight into this house, and then it's got a multi-level and then another basement below that, and then another one, and it feels like a tri-level potentially, or a multi-level. When you can't find comps for those, I feel like using a 2-story with a basement, it makes the most sense.
Can I just ask, for like a condo, if it's multi-level, but it's the same square footage, is that still just don't use it? Or
So if it's a townhouse style, compared to just a 1-story condo, is that what we're talking about?
yeah, like, sometimes they have the bedrooms up above, or they have entryway and then splits off.
It probably is a townhouse style, and those are kind of tricky to look up, but you would want to look in both the residential and the condo for townhouse, and then just check townhouse as the style. Most likely you're going to find your best comps, and it's really hard to try to comp a townhouse to regular condos because the numbers just don't match up, right? The regular condos just don't sell for the same price point usually as a townhouse. So we can take a look at maybe that one at the end too. I have a funny feeling as we get through this, it may stretch on as we're building a market valuation together, but I have a feeling that maybe there will probably be 30 minutes where we can just hash through some like questions of things that you're dealing with that you don't know what to look for.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to talk about lots and acreage. I want to go into that because that's a really confusing question, and there's a lot of details to somebody. So I'm just going to go through that a little bit. Usually on residential lots, so in a community, there's other homes about them. They're probably 7,000 to 13,000 square feet, something like that. And they're just normal residential lots. They're usually the difference between you and your neighbor is $2 a square foot. But when we get into rural lots that are acreage, we are just looking at, I've just sorted this out recently, and I feel like it's just secure to say $1 a square foot difference. I used to do a separate CMA for the acreage and what it was selling for in the area, but I've really just seen appraisers going as easy as possible lately, and they're just giving $1 a square foot difference for the rural lots. Usually those lots though can't be subdivided, or they haven't been at this point. So let me give you an example. One that says RA5 on the zoning code on it means 1 residential property per 5 acres. If it is subdividable and maybe it's an R5, so it's can be have 5 properties per acre, then you have a very different scope of how you're going to price that. At this point, I'm generally telling people it's about 115 per buildable lot if it's undeveloped. And that's probably deep reaching like a little bit deeper than we are ready to go at this point. But in case somebody understands what I'm saying and they want that information, if you can get multiple houses on one lot, it's usually about 115 per developable lot, depending on where you're at. Okay, does that make sense to anybody?
Yes, that was great.
Okay, so view. We're going to talk about things that an appraiser doesn't really use consistently, and it's really up to their gut feeling on it. So and I explain this to my clients very clearly. Let me tell you how an appraiser does this. There's no system, there's no consistent formula. It's really up to their own personal feeling about how your view is or what your lot looks like, or updates or things like that. So we'll go through one by one. We talked about the residential lots, but that's let's go to view. So for instance, if somebody has a 360-degree view of the water, they're going to probably give it a lot more value, if that makes sense, than a partial view. But there's no real rhyme or reason to how they decide that. So I want to tell people the best way to explain it is usually like if it's a 365-degree view, usually it's about $35,000 is what I've seen consistently there. If it's a partial view, it might be 10,000, something like that. And then there's the difference between maybe a mountain view and a water view. Water view generally has more value for an appraiser than, you know, a view of Mount Rainier out your window. So 10 to 15,000 for a mountain view. And then just based on the scope of the view, if it's a peekaboo view out of somebody's bedroom, you see those like mountain view out of the top left corner of the closet in the master bedroom, right? Like that's not going to have any credit at all. So let's just say it's going to make it more marketable to your clients. Oh, that's great. I'm sure it'll make it more marketable, but it doesn't have any value to the appraiser, if that makes sense. Are there any questions on views? Nope. Okay. Updated features. This is a tough one. We've had so many people have hard times with this with their clients. So we have had a number of different questions on this. Updates have to be within the last 5 years. That being said, an appraiser is not going to ask for receipts to show that it's been updated in the last 5 years. So they just have to look current, if that makes sense. There is actually no structural number for updates, except for the fact that I warn my clients, make sure you're really presenting your house in its best light to the appraiser as much as you are to the buyers, right? So don't leave it dirty or messy when you've updated the whole house. Make sure it looks really fresh and clean and updated. So most of the things that I can speak to is usually if it's something simple, like, hey, they've installed new carpet in the bedrooms and, you know, that's a $5,000 credit for updates. If they've done counters and carpet, you know, we could do something like if they did quartz counters throughout, maybe updated laminate floors and put new carpet in the bedrooms and it's freshly painted. We usually do 10 to 15,000 for that. But the max that I've seen now for appraisers is 35,000. There's not been any more. So when people tell you I put $150,000 worth of updates in there, because they really aren't going to get that same dollar for dollar value. You've made it beautiful. I'm hoping that your buyers, you know, appreciate that and will go up, escalate in price for that. But really, there's not more than a $35,000 in a normal residential home. It's still luxury. There's a difference, but there's very rarely. I've seen maybe one $45,000 credit for just a really extreme update on that. Who has questions about updates? Our friend, and give you an example, our friend Jen was in my class, and she said, my clients put $75,000 worth of windows into their house, and they really want somebody to pay the difference. I mean, they overpaid. There's nothing we can do about that, you know? So same thing with roofs. If people say, well, we got a brand new roof, there's some value to that. But the truth is, a house has to have a reasonable roof. If your roof was gone, you have to replace it. Yes, I'll add another $7,000, but they probably paid $15,000. I've never seen an appraiser get full value for a new roof, ever.
Hey, Anna, I have a question about updates.
Yes.
Like for the investor world,
Yes.
will they, going back to age, if everything is brand new, will they look at that as not new construction, but as in essence, if you're comparing comps, could you potentially use new construction?
So what they're I don't know if that's the case. So we get this in question all the time on investors, right? They put 150,000 or 100,000 into it. Why? How could they not get the full value for it? The truth is, they should be buying it low. And so their comps, you know, if they buy it for 230,000, for instance, and they're trying to get to the 425, they should be able to comp it out to like kind $425,000 houses, maybe even add 35,000 for their extra nice stuff compared to the other houses, right? So that's really how they're finding that value again, by buying low. So if there's really nothing out there, they might be new constructions, but if they're buying a 1965 house and they're updating it, I doubt it. I think they're just going to adjust it to the same, you know, a similar year.
About the upgrades, if you did, let's say a $40,000 kitchen upgrade on the house that you mentioned did the $75,000 window upgrade, are you saying that the maximum that they would get in credit for updates is 35 or 35 for each project type?
35 total. I've never seen it more. So that really leads you to have a great conversation with your client. Let's talk about, as we go through your house, what you should do or don't really need to do in order to get your house ready for the market. Let's talk about some things that are not going to just be, don't upgrade it just to make dollar for dollar, right? Or lose money in that case. So I really try to get them to do paint walls, new laminate floors, maybe some quartz counters, new carpet, and then really have that price escalate if we're going to do that, if we really need to do that. But at the same time, you know, truthfully, sometimes people just need to freshen it up a little bit because it doesn't make sense to do a $70,000 remodel for, you know, to get a $35,000 credit. Maybe they'll put them into a new level of comps. And so it's worth digging around. If they did this, would it make sense? Would it put them into a new level of comps for that area? And in most cases, it just doesn't. It doesn't make sense. Stephen, I think you had a question.
Actually unrelated, but I'll throw it out there anyway. Go by year built or effective year built?
Year built. Yeah.
Okay.
You could go by effective year built, but I have a funny feeling when those appraisers are finding the road least or the easiest road to travel, they're probably just looking in a range of things for the year built. And so there's not a specific thing to start looking for effective year built for them.
For newbies, can you define the difference between the two?
Yeah, so year built would be if I had a home that was built in 1945, and then somewhere in 1985, somebody came back through, ripped out the drywall, replaced all of the knob and tube, replaced all of the plumbing, and it was all permitted. It'll now be effective year built in the realist or tax records as 1985.
Thanks.
And it does take permits to trigger that, right? They just,
It has to be permitted. You cannot just wing it.
that's right.
Right.
Anna, this
Don't
is
ever
November.
wing
Can you
electrical,
hear me?
says the electrical contractor.
Sorry?
I said, don't ever wing electrical, but that's, you know, my scope of work. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Anna, this is November. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome. I have a question. So after we're doing all these comps, because I've been using this, I love it. I try to go to all of your classes. What are you doing to adjust for what our current market is, though? Because a lot of this is obviously in the past 6 months. But we know that our current market is going for crazy amounts over the list price. And so sometimes I've experienced where I see something that I'm like, wow, that is listed insanely low. And now you're having this conversation with your buyers like, hey, we need to come in like 60, 70 over what this is. Like when you are listing your properties and after you go through all this and you do your hard numbers, are you making adjustments for what our current market is? Like how are you bridging that gap, right? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, so yeah, no, I totally do. We kind of covered that a little bit. I think I'm going to continue to go over it on what we're doing when we present these numbers and then what we're talking to our clients about. So we're not trying to bridge the gap by raising our price dramatically above, what appraiser probably will find in the current market when we list it. We're really being as strong as possible, but we're also basing it on a fair market value because the competition needs to raise that on their own and offer the difference in cash. We absolutely cannot try to like overprice a house, based on what the appraiser can find without that competition fighting over it and paying cash for the difference. So I may go over 10,000 because I find appraisers can generally find $10,000. They just can, you're going to make them kind of come to your value on that. But other than that, I need the buyers to actually escalate that price. But we do want a fair price. I'm never going to let my clients lose money. I just need the competition and the buyers to be able to come up to that value. And the market's going to start shifting again. Once we get interest rates that are coming, going up, we'll start to slow down a little bit, most likely. I don't, can't guarantee that, but that's the pattern that I've seen in 15 years. So, we really do have to just know the right price it right, and then allow the market to determine if it's got more value than that. Does that answer that at all for you, November?
It does. That's where me and Jackie have been. But I'm just trying to think with my buyer's cap on as well. Like we've all experienced it. It's just crazy amounts over.
Well, we are, and I hope that we're seeing a difference right now. I have, I just got one yesterday for at list price and have the seller pay $5,000. Like I just about lost it, like what? So we are seeing a little bit of a slowdown. We're seeing more houses on the market, which is good for everybody. I'm hoping that we just start to balance out in June. Historically, we normally slow down in June anyways. And so I'm hoping we maybe normalize just a bit, and it's an odd year still, so we might not as much as we normally do, but I'm just letting people know, just have faith. It's so hard right there. I mean, it's tier worthy being a buyer's agent right now. It's tough being a listing agent, and it's tier worthy being a buyer's agent. So, okay. So updated features, we covered that. And then below grade square feet. So I've got way more info on that today for you guys. Throughout time, I've been just letting people know that on a split level, it's really tough on a split level because you really need to be really clear with your clients that sometimes the below grade square feet. So what I mean is the ground is anything below the ground is below grade square feet. Okay. And a lot of times they have finished tri levels or split levels. And so some of that square footage is finished, but it's downstairs. So for instance, if the top floor is 790 square feet and the bottom floor below ground is 790 square feet, they should have full value, right? Not necessarily. So below grade square feet is sometimes they don't give it any value at all, which is horrible. And I do clarify that for my clients, but we're going to try to give them as much as possible. But for the past year, I've never seen anything with no value at all. They're just giving it half value. So keeping that in mind, if it's King County and it's $50 a square feet, anything below the ground is getting $25 a square foot. Does that make sense to everybody? Let's talk about below grade square feet because I think it gets really confusing, and I'll show you how I do this on a market valuation today too.
Do you know of a reason why they do that?
I really don't. I wish I did. I don't know why finished square footage below grade that's not like, it's not filling with water. So what's the problem? It's got heat, it's got doors, it's got windows. And we'll talk about windows and stuff like that a little bit too, as far as ingress and egress for below grade, but I don't know. it's just really frustrating to me, but I just prepare my clients for it. And then I just let them know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to get you full value for it. So when I do my market valuation, I'm very clear on what that half value is on it. It's a little extra work. I hate to say it, but it's totally worth a $10,000 or a $15,000 commission to do a little extra line work for your clients.
Is the rule or the guidance on the below grade, when you do make the adjustment of up to half off, is that only on finished space? So for example, if you go into these split level homes and they've got the 2 rooms finished, but where a washer and dryer may be sitting and it's their version of a laundry room, but it's not finished, you only taking the credit on the finished area, right?
Yes, that's correct. So the unfinished space, I've seen some credit for those on some appraisals, very rare, but I'm going to give it to my clients. I'm going to get every value out that I can and try to force that appraisal to come to meet me, right? So unfinished square footage is $10 a square foot.
Thanks.
And that's a new number for me because I've gotten 3 or 4 of them lately, and seeing that consistently makes me add it to my class.
So Anna, how is that related to the valuation of, say, like adding a half bath to below grade? Like, is it going to change the? I'm sorry?
No, it wouldn't. So it's a great question though. So each half bath or bathroom still has its own qualification. They're going to qualify each individual item in here. And that actually brings up, like, when people see online, they're like, but on Zillow, it says it's $219 a square foot. Why are you telling me that the credit for my square footage is $50 a square foot? So that's a great question, actually, because when Zillow does it, it's just doing it as a big, huge number. An appraiser is always going to do it for each individual component: square footage, bathrooms, bedrooms, upgrades, all of those things. So they're actually very, very accurate compared to those online valuations. But it can be confusing for people. Like, why does it say it's $219 a square foot? And I see, online, but you're telling me it's $50 a square foot in King County. And that's why they're doing it as separate components. So it's extremely accurate.
One additional question, and the split levels have been the challenge or the thing that you find the greatest disparity is when you go on the Realtus or even the data pull into the CMA that gives the square footage, there's never the same. And so as an owner, you like it when it impacts you and your property tax valuation is lower, but as a seller, you want the maximum valuation per square foot. What's the Bible, for lack of a better description? What's the one to pay attention to? Is it the Realtus data or the information on the title work? What do you use as the square foot?
What would Anna do? Yeah, because I have an answer for that. So I really appreciate that you do look at that variance when you pull up like the realist or the tax information on there, because they're often very different from people. And so I come more with a question. When I come into that space, I'm trying to make sure, like, hey, let's talk about your square footage. What you've given me is a lot different, or what it last sold for is a lot different than your tax record. So I'm ready to address that. But when I do a market valuation and they bring it to the table, I generally assume that it's probably if it's sold a couple of times before, especially, right, that it's probably the higher number. And then what I just do is explain to them, your tax records are reviewed by the appraiser, and they do know how big your house is supposed to be. That may become an issue for them, but we're going to try to maximize your costs. So I'm going to come in at that full square footage. Does that answer that right, Howard?
Yeah.
When I do that listing, I'm going to come in, at the full 1,500 square feet, even though their tax record says 1,300.
Okay.
And then if it really doesn't exist, if it's really unfinished square footage, like sometimes people list houses with the garage square footage as part of it, we're going to take that back out, right? I mean, you can't do an unfinished square footage like a garage and just say, hey, that's part of their finished square footage. So.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody else? we'll go through a split level, and don't forget that also counts 2 stories with a basement. Even if it's a finished basement, they're going to give half credit for that.
You're going to give what?
Half credit at below grade.
Have you ever seen the assessment difference if the basement, if it's an actual basement, but there is a window big enough to crawl out of?
Is it finished or unfinished?
Finished.
It would just be half credit.
Still have. Okay.
Yep. There is also a difference. They'll note if there's a door that you can just cleanly walk out of the basement. For instance, a lot of basements have like a slider door or something like that. It's written in the appraisal. They're going to note that.
Okay.
Okay. So Waterfront, I'm just going to instruct everybody to get with a Waterfront Pro if that's the case. There's so many anomalies with the Waterfront listing that you really probably want to do, hit somebody up in your office that's done Waterfront before, if it's lake or sound or something like that. Sometimes it's just like high bank footage where you're way above the water, and that's got a different variable than it does if it's just low bank or no bank, meaning you could walk out of your house and walk into the lake, right? There's footage problems there that you got to figure out, and what kind of docks it has, and does it have lifts, and all those kinds of things that are different variables in there. I think this is probably not that class to get into that super deep, but you do want some expert advice on that, and I would rather just get back to, hey, what's our common every single day we're doing these listings as opposed to Waterfront. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, making sense to me too. Luxury is getting $75 a square foot. So anytime you're having a luxury home, what designates a luxury at this point? I don't know. I mean, in truth, I think that, to be a luxury agent, I think you need to sell like 800,000, which is like most every Seattle house at this point. So what designates a luxury? I just think, if that makes sense, just go with your gut and say, hey, this is a luxury house. It's got Viking appliances or, Wolf appliances. It's got some really upgraded features. It's really, really well presented, sweeping view of the waterfront, those kinds of things, if that makes sense.
Anna, I've heard the number like 1.3 million and above is luxury in King County. Is that accurate?
I don't know. I hear numbers all over the place. I've been told 800,000 for years, and I'm like, well, we're like every house we sell is luxury at this point. So okay. But, I don't know if there's a set number for that, and if anyone hears, let us all know. We're totally in. But I think that some of these things you kind of have to go with your gut. Same thing with the upgrades, right? You're just like, okay, they did some really nice upgrades, compliment them on them, but really you just like seriously put new carpet in the master bedroom. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to be a $35,000 upgrade. They don't get it. So you just have to go with your gut on those. What level of upgrades have they done on this house? Or what is this really luxury? Do I feel like this is luxury? Are these, is this stove $7,500 as opposed to my $719 one, So Steve, you have words?
No.
No. Okay.
I'm good. Just listening.
Okay, good. Appraisers have a unique way of appraising condos. So we want to dive into that really quickly. And I'm just going to give you, if you're a new agent, something that you may or may not have known. First of all, is that there are only certain types of different kinds of lending that can happen on condos. And so if you haven't heard that before, please investigate this. Basically, a conventional can be done with almost every condo, sometimes not. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But FHA is less frequent on a condo because they have to pay a fee every month. They've got to stay in certain criteria like 80% owner occupied, and have certain specifics about the condo that keep them in compliance with allowing an FHA condo. And the same thing with a VA. So I actually put 2 links on there that you can check it out. If you're going out with buyers and they're FHA approved, a listing agent will not necessarily put the right kind of lending on their listing because it's amazing how much they don't know that they don't qualify for it. They never bothered to look it up. So don't waste your time looking at conventional only condos if they're FHA. And you can look it up yourself. And then the same thing if you are listing a condo, please look it up and write the accurate kinds of financing on there because you're actually legally bound to deliver the accurate information on there. So make sure that you're that person that puts the right and accurate information on your listing. Any questions on that? It's pretty easy to look up. You usually just do the community name, honestly. So. All right, so condos again, let's cover that a little bit. So a appraiser often tries to look within that very same community with a condo if they can. They are not going to try to look anywhere else. And so if you've got a condo in Des Moines, for instance, and it has a condo association with only 12 condos in it, I have had appraisers technically go back like even 2 years and try to give me prices from old condos in there, which I had to fight. You really do want to start there though. So if you're looking for comps for condos, look in that association as best you can. If you can't find it, then start looking for the whole area of Des Moines for like kind, if that makes sense, or townhouses. And try to do townhouses to townhouses and condos to condos. A lot of times you can find townhouses listed under residential as well. So you don't just stop at the, the condo button on the MLS. Okay. Any questions on those?
In cases where it's a PUD, do they go and the listing utilizes the standard residential form? Does the appraiser go in and look at those as townhomes or single family residences?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've done that one, so bear with me, but I'm pretty sure that they are going to use like a zero lot line one. Is that what you mean? Something like that?
Yeah.
Where it's, yep.
Everything's connected and.
Yeah, I think they usually use a condo purchase and sale for those if they've got something like that, because there's not a lot of land, but some of them do have land. So some of them have a 4,000 square foot lot. Or something, similar, where it's just really small. They've got maybe some front and some back to their place, but it's really more like a condo townhouse.
Right.
So it's really case by case, and you really so technically you probably want to see how it's the tax records are related to that first. I would call the association also, and then honestly, I'd probably look at past listings too in the area.
I had a quick question. So if we're trying to compare to other condos that sold in that same building, we would take away the square footage based on the square footage in the, King or Pierce or wherever we are. And then also, like, say if it was like a bedroom difference, we would also take away the 5,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, right, depending on what yours has. So we'll show you where you would plus and minus, because sometimes it feels a little bit backwards, but if yours had one more bedroom than the one next to it, the one next to it would actually have that, or it's comp, right? I'd add 5,000 to one to make it like yours. So we'll go through that because it's hard to explain without just looking at it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the same exact process with a condo.
Now, is there a valuation difference if it's like a ground level condo versus a third story condo?
No, but I would try to find as many third story condos, especially if I was going to do a third story condos, give or take if you have them, right? So if you only have 3 comps, you're just not going to be able to do that. But while 3 stories is really hard to carry your groceries up to at the end of the day, technically it's usually got vaulted ceilings, it's quieter, nobody's stomping on your head, and it has a little bit more value. Perfect. Okay. This is what an appraisal looks like. So this is on one of my properties that I just bought. I just give it to you as an example because you may want to look at your own for your clients. And so I wanted to kind of highlight here, how do I find these numbers? You know what I mean? Like, what does it make? How do I get these numbers that I'm looking at? So I just wanted to show you, this is another example of a finished, unfinished basement in mine. It's 708 square feet, and they gave me a credit of 7080 on this comp, right? Because they had no basement on theirs. And then the lots are here. You can see the difference there. So they get exactly $1 a square foot. I'm normally seeing $2 a square foot on a residential lot, but this was $1. Is it going to make that much difference on mine by the time you average it out between 5 or 6 comps? Probably not. Don't care, right? So not such a big deal there. You've got this square footage here. This one actually, mine is 1176, and the neighboring one was 1280. And you can see that with the 484 square foot difference, it was $47 a square foot. So kind of in between my 45 and the 50 in this particular appraisal. And I haven't really seen anything at 47 since then, but it gives you a really good idea. So I'm just gonna find the difference and then divide that by the 5,000 and see what number they're using per square foot. Does that make sense to everybody if you were looking at your own client's appraisal? Okay. There's other things here too. Porch is 2,000, and I'm going to make sure that I add this in here for you. If you're getting pools and hot tubs, I have not seen anything over $7,000. So your clients are going to be pissed, but it is what it is, right? So they're going to have a pool in there unless it's brand new. They might give them a little bit more credit, but a hot tub or a pool is getting $7,000 worth of credit. Outbuildings are getting credit. I'm seeing a ton of appraisals show up with residential, like, and the top line there where it says location A, busy road. Mine's on a busy road, right? And then this one that says residential, I lost $10,000 worth of credit. I'm seeing 10 or 15,000 for noise or busy road on a lot of appraisals right now. So I think that's something to keep in mind if your clients, you know, sometimes we're like, oh man, they're just really located in a horrible spot. I like their house, but they're located in a horrible spot. Super easy. You can tell them that an appraiser is taking off $10,000 worth of value for being on a busy road. They need to know that. So any other thoughts or things that you see on there that you have questions about?
Can you send us this one as well?
It'll all be on my thing that we'll add you to, yes.
Okay.
But I think we'll just get down a spreadsheet. I haven't done it yet. Bear with me. And just start to keep like everybody can just get tagged into it. And anytime I update it, everybody can look at it and open it whenever they want. So something easier than maybe my whole entire class. You can see outbuildings at the bottom there. If you can see that, -15, I don't have any outbuildings. So lots of credit for outbuildings.
Wouldn't some of that be determined on size and condition of the outbuilding, right?
I've never seen it. So if it's something like, oh my goodness, you're talking about horse property, something like that, yes. Horse property, I usually do per stall, just kind of like a garage. So 10,000 per stall usually, or 7,000 per stall. If it's just an outbuilding like a shed, or it's a covering, or it's a shed, or it's a covering, they just seem to always do $10,000 to $15,000, and normally it's $15,000.
Okay.
Which is more than a garage, by the way. So
yeah,
makes no sense. Yeah. But I'm just going to stick with their formulas because it's not me that makes those rules, it's them, right?
Good question, Anna. You may cover it. What is the minus 21,000? Is that the condition that's not a livable condition?
Is in the far right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, the C4 is kind of it's like basic condition, right? And then the smaller the number you get is a better conditioned home. So mine is, I bought it, it had a renter in there. There's so much hair coming out of the vents that it's like fluttering. It's disgusting, right? So this one is, you know, kind of compared to these homes that are not in perfect condition. And this other comp is a better comp. It's a nicer comp. So they took off some value there. See here if there's anything else that stands out. The top right there, you can see where it says FHA 8,000. That's where the seller gave $8,000 worth of credit. Okay. So building a market valuation, if you're ready, we can start one. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to go first to MLS if everybody wants to do the same thing and get into their MLS. Let's just work on the CMA that we just saw. So like, let's build a market valuation based on that CMA that we just saw for 3141. How's that? So if everybody wants to get into their own MLS, you're welcome to do so. I don't know if you can do it and be on here. So we're going to go to the pending inspections, pending and sold. An appraiser's only going to use sold unless he can get information. If he doesn't have enough, he might use one pending, as long as he can figure out if it's appraised and what it appraised for, right? So maybe it's not closed yet, but it's close to. So in this case, we're going to look in King County, Enumclaw, and then I'm just going to do 3141 Porter Street, which is the name of my rental. Maybe. Does it get confused? Order. Come on. Don't mind me. I can say it, obviously.
Are you just in the regular search tab, or do you actually go in and click under single family and then click on the CMA?
I am on the regular search tab.
Okay.
Thinking you choose the distance.
There we go. Finally worked. So I'm just going to do within 1 mile. There's a ton of older houses. This house is 1915. And so there's a ton of older houses in Enumclaw. Probably going to find what I need to do there. So let's just start within 1 mile. I am going to also look at the actives, pendings, and pending inspections, because I'm nosy and I want to know what's going on in the market, right? So like if I'm kind of preparing this and I'm seeing, hey, all of these went pending inspection in 4 days. You know, if I'm in the middle of the market, I know this. But what if I didn't? What if I didn't know what's happening in that actual market? What if I was looking in Centralia and I didn't know how fast they were going compared to the ones that were going in, you know, Tacoma or something like that? I just want to know. I just want to see those numbers on there. And then this one is an older home. So, you know, anything pre-1950 probably has like old plumbing, old wiring, things like that. So let's start there, because right now I have 56 matches happening on those. I don't need 56 matches. So let's do 1950 minus. If you've got a ton, so say if you're in Tacoma and you really have a ton in your area, just do it within 10 years of when you're looking. Now I have 28. I like the number of 28, probably because I've got so many things clicked on there. But most importantly, now I'm going to have to do a 1.5 story or 2 story for this one. It is a 1.5 story, but you know, some of that's pretty different. Let's take a look. There's this charmer, but I think that was on our stuff. So that one was 275. I'm gonna go all the way to the back. I like to start at the highest number, if that makes sense. Be like, let me get to the top, and I don't want to go to start at the bottom. And so I start here on this one. It is 2140 square feet. Well, mine's only 1170, so that's a really big house compared to that one. Let's see if we can find something more suitable. That's still pretty high and pretty big compared to my 1170. So you see that all of a sudden now I'm down to like 5 comps, and really not, I don't have that many left. So I'm gonna have to start to pick some. But let's do 2 miles for fun. I want more comps. So that didn't help much either.
When you're doing comms, is it ideal to use the sold one, like the recently sold one, versus the pending one?
Yes, always, because an appraiser is mostly going to use sold comps. They're very rarely, sometimes I'll get one pending in there, but that means that they've contacted the agent, they've already gone through appraisal, and they can guarantee that that price is the sale price on it, right?
And what's the, sorry, what's the ideal comm to use? Like how many, like 5 sold ones, or?
Depends on what I can find, but if I really have a hard time finding comps, you can bet the appraiser is going to have a hard time finding comps too. So if I have to stretch out, I'm just going to tell my clients, you know what, this was a difficult one to comp. If that happens to me, an appraiser is going to have the same problem. So let's talk about maybe some ways that they might like go out further, or are they going to go out as far as date that was built, or what are they going to do? So I tried to find the most like kind to yours, because that's what they're going to do. But just knowing that I can only really find maybe 4 comps, and they're going to want 6 to 8 comps, right? And they're going to come up with the same problem as I am.
6 to 8 comps. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we can go on this one. This one's 3-bedroom, 1.75 baths and 430, 1,280 square feet. Ours is 8,900 square feet, so that's an easy one. We'll use this one on Hillcrest as well. This is a little bit smaller, but again, probably a pretty good comp. We'll just adjust for that in our market valuation. And this one on Wells. Now keep in mind the one that we're talking about has now been fully remodeled, right? So new siding, new doors, new floors, new counters, new fridge, new bathroom, new carpet, new everything, right? So we'll adjust it like that. All right, so then I'm gonna go down here, and I used to have a really cool secret, but now I don't have a cool secret. Now you just hit Cloud CMA and it's gonna input them in there for you. Does anyone see that at the bottom there?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it just adds them already into there. Wow, I cannot type. I need somebody to type for me. So Howard, you were talking about, my goodness, there's some difference in appraisal size for this one. And Cloud CMA is always going to pull off the tax record. So this one says 1,090. The last listing for this house, the last 2 listings were 1,300 square feet. So that's kind of interesting, right? And nobody's changed it. So unless it's something that's drastically different, for instance, I sold a house a few years ago. It took us a year to be able to sell it because it was a 1,200 square foot house that they marketed for 2,400 square feet. They'd added a whole top floor unpermitted. It was dastardly, but an appraiser's never going to give you just extra credit for that. If there is unpermitted square footage in the house, they're going to try to look for something that also is on the market that has unpermitted square feet. So the one I bought from Steve, actually, the back room where they just laid out that back room, and it was just extra square footage. He tried to look for ones that were not square footage, and to try to get, to add it onto there, but it was not, that's a tough one. But it was only, like a 15 by 15 room. So it wasn't like, hey, we're adding double the square footage of the house. He's going to try to look for something like that. Anything that's crazy, like, I mean,
beautifully done.
Oh, wasn't it though?
Oh.
I especially like the 2x4s on the concrete. That's awesome.
That was my favorite. Yeah.
So, but I'm still going to probably, to answer your question, Howard, I am going to, within reason, if it just doesn't seem reasonable that it's just so much unpermitted square footage or it's not true, the last 3 houses have sold for 1,300 square feet for this house. So I'm going to do 1,300 square feet. Okay. And then just within reason, I'm going to tell my clients, hey, an appraiser is going to see this information that your square footage is not the same either. They're going to try to work with you on it, but they don't have to. Right? It's also a 3-bedroom. Been sold 3 times as a 3-bedroom, and it's got this funky toilet in the basement that's just sitting in the middle of a concrete floor, staring at the washer dryer with no doors, no walls, just the toilet. So we're not going to add that as a half bath, but we could, right? It was sold last time as 1.5. All right. So we'll just hit the fetch listings. If you run into a problem and it's not letting you fetch listings, it's because your MLS code changed, and you can fix that, here in your thing. So you go up to your little picture right here. This one has my mug on it, and you click on there and make sure your MLS code is the same on there. All right, so we did not do anything special with these ones from the MLS, right? So we use that as a resource to look through pages. I always keep it open because I really probably am going to dive into the tax records, for instance, all the time. I want to see stuff that's going on with these properties. I want to look at pictures. I find it easier to do here than I can anywhere else. Like, this home is really nice craftsman. It's been updated. There's partially things that are not updated, like some original cabinets or some original floors. got that sweet ceiling up there with the drop down ceiling. But there are some really nice upgrades, obviously well painted and taken care of and well loved, right? So if we were going to do this Wells Street house, and I don't know how well you can see the pictures, but let's go look through them together. And you were going to say updates compared to the house that was just recently renovated. Would there be a difference in value for that? Oh, look, somebody put their pictures on Canva for their house. That's so cute. So siding looks okay. I don't know because I'm not there, but you know, appraiser's probably going to look at similar pictures. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. It's got some nice ceilings. It's probably freshly painted or close to. Floors probably need to be refinished. Like you can kind of see on there, it's like got wood floors, the original wood floors, but there was a lot of scuffing down there that you noticed. And those are the things that I look for. Like,
are those a deduction, those type of fireplaces?
Wood stoves? No.
Nope. Okay.
No, in fact, it will still have a $2,500 credit for it. It'll keep you alive too if you run out of power. So like in this bathroom, this is really not updated. There's all these dimples in the wall here. This really super ugly backsplash. If it's your house, I'm really sorry. I apologize, but it's ugly. So, you know, there's, and the older ceiling. So it looks nice on the surface and it really is a nice house, but it's, you know, it's got some older things to it. So I would say if an appraiser is going to look through this, is he being as critical as I am? Probably not. He's going to say it's decently updated, but probably not in the last 5 years for this house, right? So mine might get, there's new appliances throughout, new stainless steel appliances, new flooring throughout, but ultimately, like, it's not a quartz counter kind of house or whatever. Probably no more than $10,000 max for credit for mine. Does that make sense? It's nice, it's updated, but it's truly not like, you know, a thing of beauty as far as any other updates. It's still an older house. It's got new siding. It's got a decent roof. It's not old, but so on this case, because this one on Wells that we just looked at the pictures for, mine's updated more. So I'm going to put in there updated, and I'm going to give credit to this Wells house as if it was updated to the way mine was. So $10,000. All right, so I have a 1-car garage, so that doesn't change here. Garages are right here. And then mine is 1170 square feet. So I'm going to let somebody else do the math for that for me, just so we can have somebody do it. Somebody grab your calculator really quick and tell us how to find the difference on there. This is King County. And the square footage is right here, 1760, and mine's 1170.
$26,550.
Yeah, so 590, right, times 50. So it's actually 50 now instead of 45. Did you do 45?
I did. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And my thing says 45, so it's totally great answer. So my house is much smaller than this house, so it's going to be losing this 29,500, right? Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
This house is bigger. If I was going to make it like mine, I would take off that money to make it, because my house is smaller. All right, so lot size, my house is double the square footage on the lot. And so if it's a 10,000 square foot lot, you could do it super accurate. If you have a high detail person, I'd be about as accurate as possible. In a lot size, I'm not seeing a ton of appraisers make that many adjustments for them. So really, I just kind of throw a number out there. It's going to be half the square footage times 2. Great. It's $10,000 credit for that, right? If you've got a detail person and you know that, I would never do anything but the most accurate numbers and the biggest specifics about their house, because they want to know that you gave them every last credit that you possibly could. Okay. Forced air, that's the same in my house. No difference for the AC because there's no AC there. Anybody else see anything that we should note on there? Me either. Good call. Okay. They both have a fireplace, so I wouldn't make any adjustments for that. And so we'll do this one then. We'll go to the top here. So that is the 4012. I'm going to go all the way back and show you guys.
When you're in this piece of it, do you not include the actual subject property?
The subject property is actually at the top of the CMA here, if it makes sense. It's included right here. You see that? So it's going to be in there with the definitions of it. And no, I would not comp out the subject property because I'm making these comps like the subject property.
Gotcha. Okay.
So as long as I can make them adjusting and adding to make it just like the subject property on these comps, then I'm going to find the average of those, which is how an appraiser does that. Okay, so back we go. I'm going to show you these just because I can get the pictures a little bit bigger for you, and I don't think anyone's probably looking at these. So probably new flooring in there, right? New paint. Fireplace again. But really fresh. I mean, it's an older home again, so it's been, you know, freshened up, made to look really nice. That's a bathroom. That's a huge bathroom. And the cabinets in here, I don't know how old they are. I would guess from the pictures of them, they're probably like 90s, early 2000s, something like that, but not old. They're not in bad shape, but they're probably not brand new, I would guess. We could read the comments just to make sure. But updated lighting throughout, those all those things make a big difference. So if you're an appraiser and you're looking at this, you're thinking, yeah, it's pretty updated. You're going to do a really general overview. I look a little bit deeper. This carpet's pretty old in this loft bedroom. You can see it's wrinkly and dirty a little bit. It's just kind of covered by the picture.
Hard to tell. It's kind of hard to tell because it's so white, the room.
I know, it really is. But I think like when I look at it, it's kind of shadowy and dirty. But an appraiser may not see that, honestly. They may just be like, yeah, it's pretty decently updated because they're going to fly through these pictures. Do they really want to look at it and be nosy like I do? Probably not. And then a lot of this is loft space for these bedrooms. So this one is a 3-bedroom. It's pretty typical on older houses, especially in Tacoma and Enumclaw and anything 1945 to use that loft space for bedrooms or the attic space. So it's not unusual to see that out here, but it doesn't really have the same value, if that makes sense, right? Like you kind of got to do this thing to get to your room at night, or your closet is like, you know, you can hang 3 shirts or stuff like that. So it really isn't as nice of a space when you have a loft. And I would keep that in mind if you're comparing it to, you know, 2-story houses that don't have that loft space. I would actually probably deduct $10,000 if all of your other comps didn't have loft bedrooms. It's just not as appealing, right? Like if you have a choice between going to a bedroom with a normal ceiling or going to a loft bedroom, you wouldn't choose it. And then this one has horse fencing, it looks like, actually. It's a pretty small lot to have horses. So I'm not sure how that works. I don't know if I'd ever put a horse in a 12,000 square foot lot, but it really does look like it has some equestrian features there and maybe even equestrian storage facilities, but we'll say outbuildings, right? $15,000. All right, so back to our CMA, which I always click on the other one for fun. So outbuildings, if I was going to put outbuildings on this one, and remember, we're trying to make this property like mine. So mine doesn't have outbuildings. Would I add or subtract the $15,000?
Subtract.
I would, yeah. Okay. So it's got a little bit bigger bedrooms or bathrooms than mine. So 0.75 bathrooms. What would I subtract for the bathroom?
$5,000.
Yep. And the lot is really only about 2,000 square foot bigger than mine. I'm going to add that into there just because we want to be as consistent as possible. I did it on the other one. I want to do it on this one. But if it's really, really close, I don't find that they change any quality for the lot. So in this case, we'll say negative 4,000, right?
So real quick question.
Yeah.
When you're making these deductions, you're down below on the listings of the comparable properties, and these properties have more. So like with the outbuilding, the subject property had an outbuilding, yours didn't. So you make the negative adjustment on the subject property to get it to be a actual comp to your property, right?
To make it exactly like apples to mine. You got it. Exactly. So right now it's apples and oranges. I want to make it apples to apples as much as possible and then find the average in the middle.
Okay.
You're exactly right. Yeah. Thank you for that question. So anything else that stands out on this one? Let's talk about carports. 2-car detached carport. They are still going to give that credit like it's a garage. It's super annoying to me. I don't think like a weird carport has the same value as a garage, but it does. No. So in this case, there's a 2-car carport. So we're going to do carport and then minus 7,000 because I've only got one. Sometimes I see them for 5,000 for a carport, not 7,000, but it just seems like they just give it the same quality. They do note it on the appraisal what it is, but that's about it. Anybody else on anything here? Sometimes with a equestrian property, you can do some credit for fencing, cross fencing, arenas, things like that. This is not going to be considered one, I don't think. But there is some value to that. It's a lot of money to do cross fencing for equestrian properties. So make sure you do kind of get with somebody who does rural properties if you have questions about that. Or maybe have them walk through with you and tell you the things we don't know. Equestrian has a lot of lingo that, it helps to know or have somebody who does know. All right, so this one ended up going from 430 to 399, right? And then this one went from 390 to 380. So we've got 2 more to do and we'll just end up with our results and we'll just stick with those 4 instead of doing, most of the time I try to do 5 to 6 at least. So let's do this one. So 1630 square feet. Does somebody want to find me the difference at 50 bucks a square foot from 1170? I'll do it. So 23,000.
Actually, I do have a question. Sorry to interrupt. I might have missed this. I'm trying to work on another deal. So is there a rule of thumb, I guess, for your finished square units? If it's like, let's say within 200 or 300 square feet, you just don't even adjust it? Or if you're adjusting it on one, do you want to adjust it on all?
Yeah, I would, just because if people really are analytical, like what if it's really close like that, an appraiser often doesn't adjust it. But this is your opportunity to shine for your client, right? And to show what you are talking about. And honestly, if an appraiser doesn't adjust that out, it's really not going to make a difference by the time you average it, between 6 or 8 properties. And they're going to try to meet your list price as much as possible. But I feel like if this is our one opportunity to add 3 or 4 more lines to be like, we did each one of them specifically. So if somebody's going to go in and look at your work, it's accurate. Might as well do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1630 square feet. We adjusted for the square footage. Oh, does it look like no garage bays to anyone? Or maybe build a detached garage, so no garage base. So I get to get some credit for that, right? Now I'm adding because this one doesn't have a garage. What do we think about the updates on this house? Do you need me to make it bigger for you guys?
No.
Okay. What is in the middle of this? Is this like supposed to be a center island? just
It looks like a table.
Looks like an ironing board.
a table right in the stove, but I'm assuming that it's not. So let's take a look. All right, we'll get bigger pictures. You can see sometimes why I go back to the MLS though. I'm like, I'm either old or need glasses or whatever. I'm trying to peer into the house and see what's going on. So this swinging door right here, I mean, if you really look at it, it looks pretty old. It just needs to be stained or something, but it's not in the greatest shape. People will notice this when they go into a house. So that's kind of why I'm looking at it like, okay, so it's just a middle. They're using it as like a cutting board or totally intrusive space right in the middle of your kitchen. I don't know. And then you've got this really unique counter. If you see this, I didn't even notice this before, but it comes out in this funky shape right here too.
Is that a quad? Does it look like a quad?
Yeah. But it's unique. I don't even know if an appraiser would notice that. So I probably wouldn't take anything away or add or subtract to the house by that. But it gives us the opportunity to be nosy on other people's houses, right? The best part about real estate is you get to see what people do with their houses. All right, so typical craftsman, cute house, could probably use some finishes or cleaning the bathtub would be good right there. But like other than that, I think it's in pretty good shape. And then here we have a basement. So when you see these pictures, we were talking about some basement square footage. The one thing that we haven't done, if it's just a 1-story without a basement, is adjust for that. So we want to do that as well. So that would be considered an unfinished basement, right? It's just rough. It's not bad. It's just a typical old house basement. It's just not finished or anything like that. And then they do have front porch credits for this, but we're not going to adjust that in the CMA just to be really consistent here. So let's go back to this one. So I would say overall another $10,000 probably credit for the condition of my property, just because it's got brand new, appliances and floors and it's freshly painted. But is that going to give $20,000, $30,000? Not really, right? I'll tell you guys, when you get used to this, I can do a CMA in probably 10, 15 minutes now. So it seems like it's a long process as we're working together, but it can go really, really fast once you just kind of know those numbers. And then there was no outbuildings on that one either. So do we feel like we want to give probably some credit on this other one, even though it looks like it was pretty updated, but it had maybe some rough floor, maybe 5,000 just for carpet. Like it's got, a decent floors downstairs. And then we have one left to go. And then this one is, I want to show you guys how to do the below grade square footage too, if you want to stay after and look. What time is it? 30 minutes. Okay, so this guy is 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It's 896 square feet. So I'm not going to do anything on this one. I want everybody else to lead me through this. This is your time to shine. What am I going to do first?
The adjustment for the square footage.
Now let's do that. So mine's 1170. This is 896. Somebody tell me what the difference is.
274 times 50.
Okay.
13,700.
13,700. And am I adding or subtracting it?
You're subtracting. No.
You're adding.
You're adding.
So 13,700, right? Is that what you said? Okay, I'm putting it.
Yes.
Okay. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It's got a 1-car garage. It's a 1.5 story, but it doesn't look like a basement. So we'll go do basements later. What else should I change on there next?
Doesn't yours have 3 bedrooms?
It does, yes. So bedroom credit, what's bedroom credit?
5,000?
And am I adding or subtracting?
Adding?
Adding. Yep, that's right. I know it sometimes feels like, am I going to say the right answer? But the truth is, if I'm making it like mine, I have to add because they've got 2 bedrooms, I've got 3 bedrooms.
Oh, okay.
And let's see, what else? This one has solar panels. It's an entirely different conversation with people. We can have that conversation someday if you want to. But my only comment on solar panels is to make sure that it's entirely paid off before they sell it, or it could be a real problem.
Should check next to see if it's been updated.
Yeah. I got an aerial view. That's helpful, huh? Let's go to the actual listing.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if those counters are new or not.
Yeah, and the cupboards too. The cupboards look like they've been painted, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're new. I feel like those are old cupboards that have been painted gray and no knobs. So
It also looked like the appliances were older.
yeah, they're white and kind of a little bit older, I think too. Not bad, but they're just not new. Is it ever weird when you look, I keep looking through houses and I'm like, oh, I've been through that one, you know, and you start going, oh, I've been through all of them, I feel like. New appliance in the bathroom, like a new vanity there. Some newer like laminate flooring, but not anything brand new, I don't think. But still, I think it would have a little bit of value. Would it have any value though compared to mine that has all of those things? Probably not. So comping it out to one that didn't have any of those updates, yes. To mine, no. If that makes sense. And then we do have, looks like a basement down here, but it doesn't really mention a basement. So you'll find that a lot when people list houses, like it'll have a unfinished basement, and they will not say basement on the listing, but it's kind of important to probably list it as like a 2-story with a basement or 1.5-story with a basement, just so you can get, you know, the appraiser to make sure that he notices that too. I mean, it's cleaned up, but it's not really, it's not finished by any means. So if I was going to find one with a basement that didn't have it notated before, or I wanted to find out the details of it, I would go to the tax records here or into Realist, and I would find out that the basement square footage is right here at the 530. So sometimes I have to dig a little bit further to see where that square footage is, because they don't list it on their listing, right? All right, so I think no updates, right? We decided on that. No update credit. Or actually mine would have some update credit, right? Because it's got more updates than that one. New appliances, newer floors. How much would you give it for updates if it was those things?
I think we said 10,000.
Yeah, because they're just pretty basic, you know, updates. They're not high-end fixtures. I didn't put quartz counters. I didn't change out all the windows and whatever. If you did a full remodel of a house, obviously you'd give it as much as possible, or they're high-end updates or something. So when I renovate a house, I've got some pretty basic, nice, clean updates, but they're not necessarily going to be luxury because they're going to be a rental. So
You also need the outbuilding, the 15,000 for the outbuilding. Does yours
was
have a,
that the garage though?
say again?
I think that was a garage though. I think it was just a detached garage. So I didn't give it
Okay,
that.
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, because it does have the garage in there, and that would make it apples to mine already.
Okay, perfect.
I see. What about the lot size?
Yeah, so lot size, mine is 10,000. So what would be the difference in this one then?
3,000.
$7,000?
7,180.
What it is, yeah. So it would be, in this case, because mine is smaller, I would deduct that, right?
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so I have one other tip. We've kind of found these. I'm not going to worry about the unfinished basement in these ones just because they're all unfinished, right? So in this case, we'll just kind of move forward. But I have a tip here because you're going to look at this and be like, okay, so the average is the 411 or 412. And, you know, they're fairly close numbers to each other within $750. So, but I will tell you that by the time I usually hit customize and then I go back to listings again, that number's different and it's more accurate. So, oh yeah, look at that, it's 406. It's because it really didn't do the, as I adjusted things, it didn't seem to do the math quite as well. So I just want to tell everybody that that's a Cloud CMA thing, but I always go to customize first, go right back so that I have the most accurate number on this. And it didn't change by doing it over and over. So that doesn't change anything. I just want to let you know the first time I do it, I always kind of flip back there. I'm a numbers person, so I can already tell sometimes that it's not right if I was dividing and adding all those numbers up. So it makes me grumpy. So I figured out the solution. All right, so then I would list this house for 406,255. I might bump it up a little bit because I know that it's going to be really charming. I know people are going to love it, and I feel like an appraiser, like in the next 30 days, might have other comps that are going to sell that are going to be similar to those that went up a little bit higher, right? So this market's moving, everything's selling in 4 days. Most houses in Enumclaw that are listed like $399-ish are selling for $450 right now. I already know that's going to happen, but you know, I may not have 5 or 6 new comps that are going to do that. So I'm already going to bump it up 10,000. So let's take a look here at how I would deliver this to my client. Hold on, let me pull it up. So what I would generally do is I'd forget the map on this one. Wouldn't worry about that. I would just do Enumclaw, and I would do a list of the actives, pending inspections, sold. But again, I would stick with the 1.5 story or 2 stories in that. In this case, it's not a lot of them, but normally, you know, if you were gonna find something, I might even broaden this range to like 1960 minus, so I show as much of the houses on there. But like if you're in Tacoma, you're gonna have 110. I mean, it's not, you know, it's gonna be a lot of houses compared to Enumclaw. In this case, though, I am gonna just go ahead and take a look, select all. Is there really no actives? And no pendings, really? So there's not really a lot, right? Like maybe we should look at a different area, but I'm gonna go back to it anyways. I'm gonna select all and hit the CMA button down here. And this is the only time I use this button, Howard, if you wanna know. I hit this portrait report, and I really am always curious about like, if the market was out there moving, what are people finding? So there is an average of list price of 411 and then a sales price of 417 in the current sold that were just recent. So I want to bring this with me. Like, I know that's not the case because I'm in the middle of the market. There's a lot more that are going for higher, you know, but that's what that's what they bring in there. And of course I might take that 275 one off there because that's just like a flip. That's not even an important one. So sometimes you see ones where you're like, I don't even want that one. I'm going to take that 275 because it skews my number. It's not just really a basic house like the rest of ours, right?
Hey, Anna.
Yeah.
So you're presenting the one in the MLS and then cloud. Is it because you want to have 2 stats in your head, or are you trying to show them that you're?
No, I really only present the cloud CMA for pricing. but I want this portrait report because it tells me how fast houses have been selling. So it shows the 19 days, right? And then it shows the average price and then the sold price. So we know that they're going about, you know, say 10,000 bucks above that. And that's for the recent sold. So I can't, maybe I'm moving too fast to figure out why there's no pendings on that list or active. It seems really weird to me, to be honest, but am I missing something on it? Maybe it's just 1960, maybe it's my year. So maybe if I took off the year, but there's a whole bunch of new construction in EM Cloud that I don't really want to deal with, right? Like that's not anything that I want to handle. So normally you'd have some actives that would be on the market for say 5 days or something like that. And then you'd probably show pending inspections and pendings. And that way I can really reflect them like, hey, the solds are selling for above this. And how do we guarantee or make sure that you get the price that you want on this based on our starting number? So let's go back to our CMA here that we built together. Who has like raise your hand up, who has a actual like listing presentation, something that you take to people besides a market valuation?
No.
Anybody?
Sorry.
Steve, you don't?
No.
You just bring Steve, let the charm work. You do too, Sarah? It's really important. I think that, you know, being a pricing strategist is probably, I would say, 30% of how you're getting your listings. And super imperative for us to have these numbers so that we can talk to people really strongly. Even if you've never listed a house before, can you imagine if you came in and you said, here's how we have our experiences that appraisers are finding prices in houses. Here's what the market's doing right now. Now let's go ahead and try to bump it up $10,000. That being said, anything over and above that, we need to be super strategic together and get a 22 AD or get somebody to cover it in cash if we can't appraise for it, because we're very confident on our appraisal number. That accuracy by itself, even if you've been an agent for a long time or you're just starting, you know, you're always looking when you're just starting to find ways to make yourself a professional, because you don't know how to explain to people you've never sold a house before, right? Like, hey, I'm here. Hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. But when you do know what you're doing and you can speak into it, that's a huge imperative part of that. The other part that I would say is getting yourself a listing presentation. There's like formats that are already available to you. So if you don't know what to say, your listing presentation speaks for you, right? You can sometimes use the numbers from the office if you don't have your own numbers to show how successful you are. We have a super successful office, so it's really important to get that listing presentation. And I know when I came from a just a buyer's agent and I started doing listings, I was petrified. Like, what am I supposed to even say? And that helps a lot. So we can even go over that someday too. All right, so we're going to go open the CMA. So it comes out like this. So in this case, I took off what my listing price would be. Sometimes I deliver it to people and sometimes I don't. And I'll tell you why. I have a listing presentation that I'm talking about how we list houses beforehand. And part of that listing presentation, one of the most critical questions that I ask people is, I find that most people have an idea of what they want their house to sell for, or they've looked for it online or something like that. Can you tell me what you're hoping your house will sell for? Without fail, people always like stammer and they're like, I kind of looked on Zillow and I think it's 425, you know, but they're embarrassed by it, which is super funny because we all look. But it's really important to have that conversation, because what if they told me 425 and I just came in here at this one at what, 406, right? Now I know where that conversation is going to go. Let's talk about this. How can we get you there? Or what if they said, yeah, I bought it a couple years ago for 289 and I think probably 360, then I'm going to be like so excited because I get to deliver exciting news to them. It's a really critical question. Don't let them answer that question before you get to this point. And then, so sometimes I know that I'm just going to wait to find out what's going on with them and we'll go over the information together. So the only thing I'm going to do when I present this to somebody is talk to them about how we come up with these numbers, how we get that information. And let them know that appraisers are individuals and sometimes they vary from that, but this is the most consistent thing that we see there. And then I just kind of go through this very first couple pages with them. So I tell them, I show them the adjustments. Outbuildings are $15,000. Each bathroom, 3/4 bath is $5,000. Your lot is a little bit bigger or smaller, and carports and updates, things like that. And I just show them that first one. I'm going to allow them to say, I'm going to leave this with you. You can look through all the other updates, but does that make sense? So when we average them all out, and they've agreed with me, when we average them all out, we get a price. They are in complete agreement every single time. It's not a matter, because it's just a mathematical formula. It's the same every time. We use the same formula. It's not me trying to convince somebody that their price is wrong or my price is right or anything like that. We're just going to start off with where the appraiser is going to find it, and then we'll price it from there. The other day I had a, yeah. Go ahead.
I had a quick question when you can get to it. Two things about square footage is, one, where are you getting your amount to multiply again? Not the difference between yours and the comps, but where are you getting the price to multiply by?
By all of my other appraisals that I get. I get an appraisal about once a week from my buyers. So as they start to close, they get their appraisal and then they send it to me. So I'm just using what the other appraisers are doing.
Per square foot. So in your example, you were doing how much per square foot for your house?
In county, it's $50 a square foot right now, and Pierce County is 29.
50, and what was it? 29 in Pierce?
29. Mm-hmm.
And my other question about square footage real quick is, when you start to get lots that are, square footages are lots that are out of the norm for the area. So you've got a lot that's, 12, 8, I don't know, 9,000 in a place where you normally have 5,000 square foot lots, or you've got a lot that's, under 2,000 where you've normally got 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lots. And then same with square footage. Is there kind of a point of diminishing return, just going straight multiplying?
Once you
who wants who wants this like crazy yard to mow and
No,
no,
it's really the same formula. So $2 a square foot for a residential property, and then when you start to get into rural acreage, it's $1 a square foot.
Okay, so like,
and they're just
Seattle
formula
versus square foot on lot sizes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's, I'm trying to return to where I was mentally, but I don't know what that was. So when I'm presenting this, obviously, then I'm going to actually have to have the conversation about how we list houses, what makes us the experts in our area. Then we're going to dive into this price point. Now, if you were able to look at this and say, hey, I see that we're at 406. You had mentioned that you were hoping to get 425. So here's our best bet on this. Then you're going to take that opportunity to say the market's really moving. I would like to list it for somewhere about 412 something, boost up this price a little bit, let the appraisers come to us on that. Anything over and above that, though, can we agree that we need multiple offers? We need people to fight over this house, to pay the difference, so that we know no matter what, if they offer to pay the difference and it doesn't appraise, or it appraises close to here, that we have that covered. Would that make sense? I had a client just a little bit ago who had a rental listing, and they were not happy about, I couldn't come up higher than 585 on their rental listing, and that was still stretching the market, potentially like 30,000 above. That's adding some additional credit for the pool. That's doing things a western view, which an appraiser may or may not come up with, right? And so I tried to maximize it as much as possible, and he wanted to list for 6, and he was pissed. But I said, I am just here to give you advice. You can always do whatever you want to do, but let's just work with that. It's probably one of the toughest clients I've had in a long time. We ended up at 665, and he appraised for 585, right on the dollar. So us using that strategy made sure that he did get above and beyond there, but safely, right? So we had people that agreed to do the right price and to cover the difference on there. Is there any other
Anna?
questions?
Yes. What's the negative 6.05?
Oh, the percent change. So my house, for instance, the actual price that sold for this house before we comped it out was 430, adjusted down $26,000 to 404 if it was going to be like kind to mine.
Okay.
So,
Percent
and then-
different between that.
and they're really going to do, like, an appraiser is going to look at these solds and then find that average price between all of them, right? They're not just going to base it on one. So in this case, it would have, I would, list it for probably 416, even though the average is 406, because I know it's going to sell like hotcakes, right?
Okay.
For-
So for your
Sorry.
house, you're gonna suggest 416,000.
Like if I was going to list this one today, I'd probably list it at 416 because I know an appraiser could generally find somewhere about a $10,000 credit. For some of those funky things, like maybe they'll give me a little bit more credit for updates, or you know what I mean. They'll kind of make that happen. If we're in a tough market though, or if we change markets, I'm never listing above that price ever. Or if we've slowed down, and say it's December of next year and interest rates have risen, I'm going to probably go 5,000 below that. So we're the best deal in the market and the most beautiful house in the market. You do not want to be the last house on the market in a tough market or even a slowing market, because then you end up chasing the market down and go down and down in price. So all of those strategies work really, really well with this. And you can use this to help your clients if they want to refi too, you guys. I do it all the time. So, hey, I want to refi my house. Do I have enough equity in there to get off, the PMI or something like that? Call me so that you're the person that they trust to do that. Maybe you've got friends that you haven't even listed a house yet, and you can use this to be like, I want to use my new system. I want to try it out. Let me get your house a market valuation. Or if you're getting ready to refi, call me first. If you are the pro they call on your houses, they're going to call you for everything.
For the CMA report, did you upload templates into Cloud CMA so that it came out like this?
No, I went to the customize button.
Yep.
And it's already going to be like 8 million trillion pages. And I don't want to print a small tree. So a small tree, but maybe not a large tree. How's that? So I just actually customize it and then save that one. So I don't add anything. It's the Michael Lewis marketing suite. You can choose whatever one you want. I don't even know if we do Michael Lewis anymore at all. And then, of course, I usually have the suggested list price. Sometimes I stick it in the back, so I don't even have to deal with that until I'm ready for somebody. Because if they see it, they're already like, that's my number. You know what I mean? And I usually stick it in the back of my CMA so we can address that when we need to. Map of listings and then details and adjustments. So there's other things on here, like they'll do like the first dozen pictures and then the rest of the pictures. But by then you've got a 48-page market valuation. So I really just try to get the first couple of pictures unless I really need to redirect somebody on their house. So let me give you an example. If somebody really thinks their house is awesome and they have 1978 shag, I need them to look at the pictures to tell me if they believe that house is better or their house is better, right? And you will, you seriously will do people that they say, my house is totally updated, and it truly is like 1979.
Now, do you include a cover letter typically?
I don't.
Okay.
Other people do, and I totally get that. I think my cover letter is my listing presentation. So it really talks about what differentiates in this market. How do we do things differently? And you'd be really surprised. I think that 99% of your competition, and I'm not kidding you, comes with a 3-page printed thing from the MLS that just shows like the houses that recently sold. 1 story, 2 story. Nobody's a pro more than you are, even at this moment, really. So you'd be really surprised if you come in there with a listing presentation that is just even a pre-formatted one from your office, and then talking about how you list houses and how you price houses, you're already ahead of the game. Anybody else? Did I cover? I feel like I'm missing some things here. So is there some questions? Let's just do questions and answers.
Okay, Anna, just real quick. So if it comes out 406 and then my client says, okay, I want to list a little bit lower, like I want to list 10,000 lower, what do you say to that? Or if I want to list 10,000 or 20,000 more than.
Yeah, first of all, the battle is never to list lower. I would say that. If they do, they're crazy, right? Like, I want to make less money. I would be really surprised if they did. And they may say, I want to list higher, but the conversation for me is always like, while we do want to make more money, we have to let the buyers make the difference in that. So they're going to have to be competitive in their offers. We know that we can list probably about 10,000 above this, but anything other and beyond that, if it doesn't appraise, it doesn't make sense, right? So we have to start from this appraisal and then try to maximize it from there. And honestly, I think if you really know your numbers and you know what you're talking about in this, it's really rare that I have fights over price. And yet we really do. For years, we've beat a lot of prices in a lot of areas despite being able to be competitive. And no, sometimes I have to drop the news on somebody that they're way over. They think they're way more than they are. But most of the time I can actually make the money by doing this. So. Who else?
Anna, you always use the PDF version. There's a live version that I've used more on Zoom meetings, especially. What's your thought on doing the PDF version versus the live?
Zoom meetings, absolutely great. I tend to be in with people. So if Zoom meetings are your mojo, I absolutely will use that, or out of state people or people I can't get with, or just 2020, right? Like, we use things that we're going to email to people. It comes out in a very different format, which I don't know if I'm as comfortable with. And sometimes you can't get the same data out of it. Seems like I've had agents try to help me with their CMA. They sent me the live version. It just seemed funky. I wasn't able to get to it. So my inexperience says I don't use that one. And I usually just sit in front of people as much as possible and grow those relationships with them. But as the world turns these last couple of years, obviously we use live versions a little bit more. Yeah, nothing wrong with it. I'm just not as super comfortable with it myself. That's an Anna problem.
Makes sense. So if you're in front of somebody at their kitchen table, you have your laptop, you're using the PDF version.
Yeah, and I generally print it. I hate to say it, but
Okay.
tactile to me has got some importance. Like, I leave them with something that they could like flip through in bed. I literally print my listing presentation and I bind it in the book binding too. It's just more solid and tactile. It has some value. It's weird with my listing presentation. I'm not kidding. People have taken it and moved with it. Like, they still have it. It's weird. But it's cool, right? Like, to them, it's a valuable item. So, and I kind of leave it that way too.
One more question, off topic. Can I have the number to your roofer guy, Brian? Is he still doing that?
Yes. Yeah. 253. 391 8443. We are crazy booked though. So, yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to bribe him.
Okay, thanks.
Another off-topic one. Do you have any referrals that deal with crawl spaces that have signs of pests?
Like a pest control company?
Well, they need the crawl space cleaned out, get rid of the pests, and seal off any entry where they possibly came in.
Yeah.
Clean crawls too.
Clean crawl.
Crawls is expensive. I'm not a super big fan of their price. But 316 insulation is good.
What's it called?
316 insulation.
I also had really good luck with Crawl Pros.
Yep. All of them are good. All of them are darn expensive by the time you replace the insulation. I mean, you're probably looking at $4,200.
Ooh.
For 316 or for all of them?
No, 316 is the best price that I found.
Yeah, I heard the other places were high that everybody is saying. Okay, thank you.
I usually hang on to every word, Anna, but 316 what?
Insulation.
Insulation.
They're actually out in Enumclaw now, Steve.
Okay.
They go everywhere. I've had them go everywhere.
Okay.
Is your roofer guys probably busy because you can pay it at closing? But if I'm going out to ask just other company, I would, not many people offer that, huh? Like pay
No,
them
not
at
a ton
closing.
do. Yeah, call Brian, see when you need it done, and maybe they can do it after closing. But no, not a ton do, but it's worth asking. Why not ask them, hey, if we've got it locked in escrow, do you have some kind of agreement that you can pay it at closing? Sometimes they do. So like we have an agreement, basically, like if you don't pay it, it's obviously due within 30 days if your deal falls apart or something like that. You can't just like leave us open-ended, but some of them do as well. You can check with them.
Thanks.
One question popped in my head. If I'm in a 2-mile radius and I don't have enough comps to work with, is it okay to go out to 3 or 5?
And they will.
I've got no
They'll
other
go,
choice, really.
yeah, they'll go 3 or 5, and they just have to write a notation on their appraisal that says why they went out further. It's a rural area. It's pretty common in rural areas to do that.
Okay.
If you've got a 5-acre parcel between each lot, you have to start going out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, understood.
What about you, Jason? What did you learn today? Totally gonna unmute Jason if he doesn't respond. Jason, tell us.
Hey, sorry about that.
Okay.
Honestly, I think the best refresher and just kind of confirming the dollar amounts per change, when you're comparing the homes.
I wish I wasn't so busy. I mean, I'm glad I'm busy. It's a great problem to have, but I will definitely get something updated. I had planned on doing it this morning and updating my class so it reflected that, but there's been a lot of new stuff coming out lately that I've noticed. So I really feel like just putting a spreadsheet together and having everybody just kind of get lined up with those numbers, and anytime it changes, you can just refer to it. You know what I mean? So
totally. Yep.
Something together for that our offices can all just tie into.
That'd be great. I don't know if you've got my new email, or you may have. I don't know.
Is it Steve Parker at KW now?
It's Steve Parker 5610 at KW.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's good. I will. What I'll probably do is send it to Goldie and have her just send it as a link to everybody that you can just add.
Perfect.
And did I see, is Angelina still on here?
She's also KW, right?
I know. I bought the house I'm in right now, giving this presentation I bought from her.
Oh.
So all of my favorite Unum people are all KW now.
Yes. There was a migration.
Thank you, Anna. You're awesome. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Let me know. Otherwise, we're all just going to sign out today, guys.
Okay.
I have one. I wanted to go back to my question about the weird lot size stuff and shapes and whatnot. So to elaborate more, it's a manufactured home on like an acre that's like a triangle, right? But the triangle is mostly unbuildable. It's underneath these big transmission lines.
Oof.
So I'm trying to figure out, I mean, obviously there aren't that many manufactured homes that are also on individual lots. I found a couple.
Where is it at? Tell us about it.
It's in Shoreline.
Okay. And it's manufactured. So we're not going to click manufactured because that's usually houses in mobile home parks.
Yeah.
Residential, because the title's been eliminated on that. But then is it a double wide, I take it?
Yes.
Okay. And it's in Shoreline.
Yeah, and the couple comps I just found, I just did 2 miles from that. One was in Lake Forest Park, and I think one was in Shoreline.
Let's just start going out a little bit deeper then. So Shoreline has what, one in the whole?
Yeah. Yeah, Shoreline had one.
You're having a hard time with this. It's so weird.
Yeah.
So Shoreline. So let's do, like you said, Lake Forest Park.
And Montlake Terrace are all right next to each other. Yeah.
But then we end up in Snohomish County, right? So are we in Snohomish at that point?
Yes, we are. Yeah. So the it's nearby the lot line or the county line.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, I know I talked about Tacoma and Pierce, but Snohomish also has the $50 a square feet. Just so, and then anything kind of south or more rural or, you know, out there, Thurston County and stuff, they're at the 29 for most of the rest of the state. But Snohomish, King, and or both of those have $50 a square foot. All right, so hold on, I'm missing a space here. I've got Mount Lake Terrace, I've got Shoreline. What else was I supposed to look for here?
Lake Forest Park, but you might not find one. Actually, I guess there's one in Lake Forest Park that I'm using as a comp, but it's a residential single family. I'm not sure if I should use it as a comp, but it's
We've only got two. So here's what I would do. What is your address for yours?
The address that I'm using is 2543 Northeast 203rd Street. And I did
So
2 miles within that.
I would explain 2543 Northeast 203rd Street. Is it supposed to be in Cottage Lake?
No, it's Shoreline.
2543 Northeast 203rd Street, right?
Yeah. It's kind of a weird lot because it says 2547 on the county records.
Oh, that's why it's not going to pull up there. Okay. This comes up a lot on stuff, so do pay attention to those county records. It's probably going to only come up that way. So there it is. It's only going to come up as 2547. And what I would suggest is talking to your rep about that and figuring out what it's really supposed to be listed at, because it's going to come up as a problem otherwise.
Yeah, it's got 2 lots, so it makes sense. I mean, not like 2 separate lots, but because of the power lines.
So I would just go in this case like 5 miles from there. That's probably what an appraiser is going to do, because you really can't, like, individually, it's just really super hard to find ones within there.
Okay.
And you just explain to your clients the same thing. Hey, I'm going to end up with the same, appraiser's going to end up with the same problem that I did, right? It's not just going to be me, it's going to be appraiser. So, well, there's kind of an unknown on what they're going to do because your comps are not great. They're just probably going to have to go out further than, you know, just your normal area. So for instance, in this case, they had to go all the way to Briar, Bothell, Linwood, just to even get 6 comps. And then I would use those comps as your thing, and then adjust for square footage. So in this case,
yeah, that's one of the ones I found.
This one is 23,000, but you said that some of the lots not usable.
Yeah.
It's unlikely that they're, unless it's a wetland, they probably won't change it for having the power lines on it, to be honest. So if it's a wetland and it's totally unusable, they couldn't even build a shed on it, yes, they would adjust for that. But like, let's just say it's all flat, dry, usable land. And they wouldn't make any adjustments probably for the power lines, although I would make probably a $10,000 adjustment just because it's not as appealing to people, right?
You can't build anything under the power lines at all. It's like the big transmission lines that say you can't build within 75 feet of the center type.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I think, but most of these lots aren't probably subdividable that these ones are on either. You can choose one of them. So I would just probably call them apples to apples at that point and decide square footage. So is it like an exact, we'll say it's an exact acre. So you've got 43560, which is an acre, minus 15682. And so you would adjust this comp, for instance, in Bothell, you would add 27878. If you really feel strongly about, you know what, that's such unusable land, be really clear and explain it to your clients. Hey, this is very unusable. They can't even build a shed under there. So we're really going to cut it in half as far as the usable goes, and allow other people to see the value in having that open space that they may like, right?
Yeah.
If they want to pay more for it, they will. But an appraiser's, you know, it's really unbuildable and you can't do anything on it. So you can do, I would probably just do that. Just go out a little bit further to 5 miles from there.
Great.
And forget the county, forget the city.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Anybody else? All right, I am going to officially log us off this time. If you have any questions, make sure you can email. It's Anna@LegacyGroupNW. And then everything else, I'll try to get something together so you have some statistics to be able to look at and use on your own. And we'll see if we can get those out in the next few days for you guys.
What was that email one more time?
Anna@LegacyGroupNW.com.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Thank you
All right.
again.
Thank you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.